So I see a quorum, so I'm going to get us started. Welcome to the February 3rd. Did I count right, Dean?
Oh, I don't know. Do we have people online that are Jason?
We have one.
I haven't for Amy in a while.
I don't know where she is.
And now it's been forever. Lovely to see you.
Okay, so that's
Did I count correctly?
I think that's 10, right?
Mhm.
10. So that's 10.
All right. So the first thing I'd like to do is introduce the newest member of the Senate. Rayette Newman is for the next, this quarter and the next quarter is replacing Leanne McInerney, who has a class conflict both terms and can't be with us. So Rayette, welcome.
Thank you.
And we have two sets of minutes to approve, the December 2nd and the January 6th. Is the December 2nd one tabled?
Yes.
Okay, so let's dispose of the January 6th minutes first. Do I have a motion to approve the January 6th minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and second. Any corrections or discussion? Yeah.
Yeah, I was present, and Jocelyn was also present.
Thank you. So we need that addition to the
You
minute.
got that?
Any other discussion or changes to the minutes? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? January 2nd minutes are approved as amended. And do I have a motion to untable the December 2nd minutes?
So moved.
I have a motion. Is that a
Second.
second? Okay. All in favor of untabling the December 2nd meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Deanna, could you explain to us what you
Well, I'll move to approve the new minutes for December 2nd.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the minutes. And
And then-
Deanna, could you tell us about the correction?
So I know if you remember when we had a conversation at our last meeting, both Steve and I had some issues with clarifying, making sure that it was clear what the DPD recommendation was, to make sure it was clear what the amendment was that Steve proposed for the emeritus faculty. So I tried to just go through and fix those sections. I ran out of steam before I got to the liberal studies one. And somewhere in there, up towards the end, it says that there was an amendment made to the liberal studies resolution. And I didn't know if anybody remembered, so I just left it as resolution passed as amended, but I don't know if it was.
What the amendment was?
Yes.
I don't know what being made.
It was a small change to the wording at the very end of the resolution.
And it's something, I think it was something Sarah Witt suggested.
It was, and it,
Sarah has notes. It's awesome.
I don't know if I have those.
Yeah, go see them. If you don't have it, I'm okay with letting it go, but I think it would be nice for that.
Is this something substantial, something we should defer until we have the correct wording?
It had to do, the very last line in that resolution was, unless a new degree program developed by the Liberal Studies Council and moved forward through the established shared governance processes is formally approved. And the amendment was, unless a new degree program or capstone course. So it was the addition of the words or capstone course into that sentence.
Okay, so we can just add that in there and I'd be happy.
Okay, so we'll need to amend the minutes as Sarah pointed out to us. Okay. Any other discussion or amendments of the December 2nd minutes? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. We've accepted the December 2nd minutes. Next on our agenda is the President's update. President Kent.
Thank you very much. First thing I'd like to do is introduce Chris Burford, who is our new General Counsel and Board Secretary. And Chris, why don't, if you're willing, if you'd like to make a few comments, I think it'd be good for people to just get to know you and hear from you.
Sure. Well, probably the first thing you might want to know is I come from a university family. 3 generations of my family are college professors, starting with my mother's father.
So
My mother
what
is-
happened to you?
Well, my sister became a college professor, and so I decided being a lawyer was a better plan. Along that line, I went to the U of O for law school, and pretty soon after graduation in '92 and passing the bar, I came out to work with the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. I started out doing a job for them. I was the lawyer on an interdisciplinary team that otherwise had scientists on it, helping them go through the documentation, comment on federal documentation regulations for the Hanford Nuclear Reservation. After 5 years of that, I became a general staff attorney for the tribe. After 5 years of that, I became essentially the tribal attorney general. So I managed the legal department for the tribe. And then prior to coming here, I was in private practice for just shy of 4 years, doing, among other things, a fair bit of municipal law. So advising governments in their general legal matters is something I've had a lot of experience with. Also a lot of experience getting deep down in issues of sometimes federal regulation or other things. So I have a pretty broad legal background. I would say not a whole lot of litigation background. That would probably be the area where I have done at least, although I have done a fair bit of that. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm looking, well, I can't say I'm looking forward anymore because I'm doing it. I'm enjoying, this is I think about my 10th day at work, really enjoying being here, working on campus, starting to meet people, learning my way around. I know it's a process that's going to take several months. And, oh my God, the acronyms and the terminology, it's all a little exhilarating, climbing up that learning curve. That's what makes life interesting. So, I'm personally very committed to being as great a service to the university as I possibly can be. I know the university is in a period of, searching out its vision and what it's going to be. And while I don't have any sort of really long history with the university, I'm hoping that I can bring skills and contribute to that effort, and hope to play a long-term role in helping the university moving forward. My office is down in the president's office, and I'm going to be looking forward to getting to know people. So,
Where the provost used to be.
thank you.
Thanks.
So Chris started 0.5 in January. He's 0.8 in February. He will be 1.0 in March. I mean, he's unwinding a number of other affairs of private practice, etc. And we'll be moving to Corvallis and or to. That's where I'm headed after this meeting. So, and he will, right now I think we're pretty immersed getting ready for our first board meeting. However, he needs to get into contracts. I'm looking at Rory down, with charts and some of the things in the Rural Studies Center. And there's a number of research or service kind of internship type contracts that need to be executed, and Chris will help with all of that once, he can see the light of day again after the board meeting, probably. So
There's a certain pressure of getting ready for the big show, and so we're all getting ready for that. Thanks.
thank you. Just a couple other things. I gave you my notes. The legislature's in session. There are numerous issues that are of very high import, I think, to EOU. Funding being among them, obviously. The HEC is looking at a different model. We don't do too well in the model, and in fact, in the data I reviewed this morning, we do the worst of all 7. It's an outcome-based funding model, really starting to fund degrees as opposed to credit hours. We don't have great retention and graduation rates, and that will hurt us. And so it will require some adaptation and some refocus on kind of what's important. It's phased in over a 6-year period. It does have stop loss and stop gain provisions in it, so there's no wild swings in the short run. But if you think about a 6-year phase in, is about 16 to 17% a year. So next year, 16 or 17% of our funding will come through the new model. 83 or 84% through the old model. The following year, it'll be 32 or 34% through the new model, etc. And so it'll just keep phasing in. I'm not real enthralled with it, although Brian Fox, who was my graduate assistant, is writing it, and he and I talk regularly. There is some concern in the legislature about it, and there's, I would even say, kind of legislative concern about what have we done, with OEIB and HEC, and kind of reflecting on, is this better, or not, and so on. So, in addition to that, with the dissolution of the Chancellor's office, there are numerous things that they used to do for us that they will no longer do, that we will have to do for ourselves. That's between $1.5 million and $2 million a year worth of things. Just so you're aware, we will be seeking funding for those things that are commonly referred to as shared services. And I think we have pretty good support for that. The governor's budget had no reference to it. We worked the co-chairs. It's now in the co-chairs framework. There's more work to be done to kind of pin that down, but it also cuts sports lottery funding, which is important to all of the university's athletic programs, and the governor's budget did. The co-chairs have restored that, and other things. But Tim Seidel, myself, and others will be busy working in the legislature. There's some pretty heavy lifts, and so I'll be spending increasing time probably away from campus in Salem, but working on behalf of the institution. Just a couple other notes. Eastern Promise, this is kind of a shout out for that program, and I know Danny's in the room, but we've hired consultants because we are the grant holder. We got a $2.2 million grant 2 years ago to run the Eastern Promise in partnership with Blue Mountain Community College and Treasure Valley Community College and Intermountain ESD and Malheur ESD, and Danny's kind of the principal investigator, if you will, on that grant. Well, part of the grant requires replication, helping other sites throughout Oregon. I think there's 5 other sites trying to replicate what we're doing, which many are struggling with that, just for various and sundry reasons. And then also there's a component of the grant that requires a kind of evaluation of the results or impacts of this work. And while it's a little early to draw too many conclusions from it, there are a couple of pieces of impressive information that were in the notes I sent you. And one is that every student that has taken an Eastern Promise, 99% of every student that took Eastern Promise credits in high school graduated, as compared to an 80% regional graduation and a 68% statewide rate. Their absenteeism went down, which means they're more engaged, kind of more excited about going to school, and there's a direct correlation, I think, between absenteeism and academic success. And more of them are going to college than had before, which was part of the the promise, if you will, that we were going to give them the confidence that they could perform it at the collegiate level. In addition, we hired Eco Northwest to study the kind of cost benefit, if you will, of the program. It is somewhat expensive, as I mentioned, $2.2 million over a couple-year period of time. But they found that the benefits far exceed the costs, almost to a 2-to-1 ratio. So, the benefits to the state of having people picking up a college degree and earning roughly that $1 million more over their lifetime and paying income taxes back to the state coffers, when you net present value all those calculations, it still looks like a 2-to-1 ratio of benefit to cost. So that's really a tribute, I think, to Danny's leadership and to EOU's kind of partnership, as well as our other partners. The last thing that I want to talk about, and then I'll answer any questions you may have, is the Board of Trustees meeting. Our first ever Board of Trustees meeting will take place next Thursday in this room from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we will consider the bylaws. Chris will walk them through the bylaws. They've all seen them. We've been communicating with them. We will elect officers, and I've spent a good deal of time on the phone over the last 30 or so days with every board member, and I'm going to give you a preview because, this is kind of maybe a little awkward in some sense, where you have a board that's never, first meeting, never been formed, and, well, who's going to run the meeting, right? And who's going to tender a slate of officers? And so I decided I would do that. And, I've talked to everybody. They're comfortable with that. I've sent them these recommendations. I think they're mostly comfortable with them. But they will have to vote on them. And so, until they're approved, both the bylaws and the slate of officers, this is all preliminary. But it was clear to me in the conversations with the 13 directors that we have, I'm the 14th, and we have one yet to be determined. We had a board member ready to go and was on the list, and the weekend or the week before he was to be confirmed, he went to the doctor and found out he had some issues he had to attend to and wanted to withdraw because of that. But so here's the officers. David Nelson. There was unanimous support for Senator David Nelson as board chair. And I hope most of you know him. He's a very genteel person. He's a former state senator, lives in Pendleton, Oregon. Very interested in water issues, in the West and so forth. Roberta Bobby Connor will be nominated to be the vice chair of the board. Bobby is the cultural center director at Tenmascalick, I probably butchered that name, but center over in Pendleton, over by the Wild Horse. They have a museum, and she's the curator. Bobby is a U of O graduate. She was actually raised in Dorian Hall. Her mother was a student here many years ago, and she was a toddler in that hall. I guess that was allowable back then, or maybe not. And, and she's very familiar with Eastern Oregon, very plugged into the tribe. She's on national boards, accomplished author, etc. Richard Shavs will be the chair of the Finance Committee. Richard runs Shavs Consulting. It's in Baker City. It's a pretty impressive operation, actually, and it does statewide voting systems for 5 states and also runs the database for multiple court systems. And does a high-speed, very reliable data center that's actually in the old Baker Hotel at the far end of Main Street in Baker City. And the Shavs is a Portuguese name. It's a pretty interesting family history where his relatives came from Portugal through Ellis Island and couldn't speak any English, and they hung a sign around their neck, said Durfee, Oregon, put him on a train to the west and good luck. His grandfather, and they've been there ever since, really long time homesteaders in the Durfee region and Baker City region. The chair of the Academic and Student Affairs Committee, who I will nominate, is George Mendoza. George is the assistant superintendent at Morrow School District, or Umatilla School District, I may have that wrong. He's a alum of Eastern. He lives in Tri-Cities in Richland, and he's agreed to be the chair. So then we'll have an executive committee, and the bylaws is currently written as executive and audit. We will debate with them whether to leave the audit there or move the audit over to the finance committee. That's one of the things that I was thinking about talking to them about, and Chris as well. But the executive committee, automatically the chair of the board is chair of executive committee. The vice chair of the board is vice chair of executive committee, and the two committee chairs, Richard and Bob, or George rather, will be members. In addition, I've asked Dixie Lund if she would be there, because I thought the executive committee is actually going to evaluate the president. They're going to, probably be kind of the nominating committee in the future, etc. And I thought it'd be good to have somebody with great familiarity with Eastern that was sitting there. The president's not allowed to be on that committee, obviously, because they're going to evaluate the president. And then I have a to-be-determined person. It's a 6-person committee. And I'm actually hoping perhaps the new member could go in there, although the chair can appoint whoever. On Finance Committee, we have Richard Shavs, Tom Insko, Holly Kerfoot, Abel Mendoza, who's Ray Brown, and again, the president. That's a 7-member committee. And the new member to be determined would be the 7th member. Academic Student Affairs, again, a 7-member committee. George will be George Mendoza, chair. Pat Todd, Jer Pratton. Jer's the assistant superintendent, retired superintendent of Hermiston School District. Dixie Lund, Elsie Prager-Goller, who's our student member, Cheryl Martin, and again the president for the 7th person. The other person that I have been recruiting is a fellow by the name of Bill Johnson. Bill is an MIT rocket scientist, if I heard him correctly. He's a very bright man. He was the creator of Microsoft 3.0. He's a retired Microsoft executive. He then spun off another technology company before he sold that, and he now is the largest landowner in Malheur County. He does business as Sage Farms. He's kind of got a very diverse kind of farm. He's also on the Poverty to Prosperity Initiative in Malheur County. He is going to be a guest. He's coming to the board meeting. He's interested. He asked me to talk to, he wanted to talk to, and well, first of all, he was nominated by, or suggested to me by Senator Ferrioli, Representative Bentz, Dana Young, who's the president of Treasure Valley Community College, and by Holly Kerfoot, who she's friends with his wife. I mean, they both live in Fruitland, Idaho, I believe it's called. And he's very interested. He's having lunch with Tom Insko this Friday, I believe, and he wanted to talk to Dixie Lund. And he's coming to the board orientation, so I think he's definitely interested. He's a really interesting man. I mean, I called him to interview him. I actually got interviewed, and he's, there's some people that are going to push us, which I think is going to be good. He cares deeply about education and about the future of Eastern Oregon and, our ability to educate leaders, etc. And he comes with a really interesting background that I think will be very helpful in many ways. So the main part of the board meeting, we will have reports from the Faculty Senate President or Presiding Officer. I'm not sure what your title is exactly. Pardon?
President.
Okay, pardon me. And at every board meeting, we'll have reports from the chair of the University Council. We'll have reports from the student body president or designee Phillips unable to make it to the first meeting, but at every meeting. So the board will be getting that. We will, probably be having dinners before every board meeting, the night before. I'd like to provide some sort of entertainment or some sort of introduction to EOU at each of those, be it a lecture from a group of faculty or individual faculty, or performances by students, or other opportunities for them to learn more about us. So it's a little more casual, but also getting them to understand and appreciate kind of some of the virtues and people that we have at this university. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or I do need to be in Salem by 9 a.m. tomorrow, so I need to get on the road at some point here. So,
questions for the president?
yes, sir.
You mentioned that with the new funding model, there's obviously going to be different conflicts with some of the partners that offer degrees on our campus with our classes, but they actually get degrees from their institution. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? And kind of a related note, do you think that this change might cause more of a clamor for transfer students than there has been, more competition there, in the sense of just having more students on campus that are close to graduation who have already gotten a good chunk of their degree done? Do you anticipate any change in that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I did my dissertation. The title of it was The Anticipated Effects of the Introduction of the RAM model, and surveyed faculty and got their opinions about, and this was done before it was implemented. I was actually part of the implementation, and it was interesting, and it's hard to predict exactly what the impacts will be. I have been very vocal, as have Sarah and others, at committee meetings that, if you don't do this right, you could really screw up these partnerships, like our partnership with OHSU, or our partnership with OSU, or our partnership with OIT, or other, our partnerships with community colleges. It appears to me that a degree is going to get funded regardless of how many credit hours the students actually achieved at your institution. And so there may be incentives for us to really focus on transfer students, because we teach them for 2 years and get the same amount of funding as if we teach them for 4. There are a lot of things in the model I worry about. Just simple continuing education, lifelong learning doesn't seem to be valued much in it. There are a lot of people maybe just are picking up a credit here, a credit there for skill, development, or other projects they're working on with their employers, or other things. And those, there will still be a de minimis amount of funding. I think it's about 20% as it's fully rolled in that will be still on credit hours. But I'm very worried about the implications this could have for competition, for students, and other things. They have weighting factors. A degree to a rural student will be worth more than a degree to, I guess, a non-rural student, being urban, I guess. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to define that. A degree to a low-income student will be worth more than a degree to a higher income student, because there's probably less preparation at home, with generally speaking in lower income families, and therefore more advising and other support needed in college, for them to be successful. And there will be higher weights for degrees to diverse students, that are from underrepresented populations. And so the whole, I hate to use this word, but it's kind of a game. You have to position yourself to glean as many resources as you can. And it will drive behaviors. It will drive kind of directions, initiatives, etc., that, could be good, bad, or ugly. I mean, it's hard for me to anticipate all of the things. I would like to slow it down. I want to make sure that, the other thing they're saying, and actually I agree with this from a public policy, but it sucks for Eastern, that they will only fund students from Oregon. 27% of our credits today come from students from Idaho and Washington. We have charged them resident tuition. We will have to change that. If we don't get state subsidy on those students, we will have to change our pricing. And, we've already begun, Javier and Gina Galvez, the director of admissions, and I have already begun talking about what that means for recruiting, what it means for pricing. We're meeting with students now on, pricing, et cetera. And we're going to have to change some of those strategies as well. So, the game is changing. We got to adapt with it in some sense.
So on that last item that you mentioned, I'm wondering where we can argue that point, because we serve low-income, first-generation students, and everybody knows that. Our community is Eastern Oregon region. It's a pretty easy argument to make that this region includes those students in Central Idaho and Eastern Washington. And our subsidies to support the students that are most needy in this state have been cut back. And we continue to serve a population. It seems it would make sense to me for the state. It seems like the state should think that we ought to get that money as some sort of payback for all the work that we do with underprepared students.
Yeah, John,
How do we present that?
well, the way I think about it, and, if in all candor, I told Bob 5 years ago we couldn't continue to fund those students. And, every year then he would call me and beg me to reconsider, and I did, generally, because I'm kind of a bleeding heart type person. And I don't disagree with some of your arguments, but when you have such little state funding, and so think about an equation where that money sits on the numerator of a calculation, and the denominator is Oregonians, or the larger that denominator gets, the smaller the product per student gets. And how, as a legislature, can you say to an Oregonian that we're taking your very finite tax dollars and using it to subsidize education for an Idahoan or Washingtonian who will pay taxes to their states, their $1 million of incremental earnings, assuming they move back home, right? Maybe we need to have a marriage campaign where we marry them all up to Oregonians. But, if that's, it's really getting to be kind of this, what's the return on that investment to Oregon?
And that sort of calculation chiefly doesn't work when you talk about how you provide services to the least valued in your state. And we provide services to struggling students. I'm not saying that you can make an argument for serving struggling students in Idaho and Washington. I'm just saying we're not getting enough to serve the students that are here. So why don't they let that one go?
Okay, well, I absolutely agree with that argument, and that has been my message. Look, if you want to get to 40-40-20, the very people that we serve, these lower income kind of average kind of students, are the ones that you really need to get a degree, and we're good at that. I think our faculty take pride in that. Nancy has told me this on numerous occasions, and they're more expensive to serve. They need more support. They need more advising. They need more counseling. They need more FaceTime with faculty, whatever. And that message does resonate.
But we don't get that money. We don't get extra funding for serving the underserved students.
Well, there's extra money for low income. There's extra money for rural. There's extra money for diverse, right? And more of our students will be diverse, as the Latino children come through the K through 12 pipeline. And so some of, how much we lose depends on where those weighting factors set. How much more do you get for a low income or diverse or, rural student compared to, an average urban student or whatever. And that's where some of the arguments will be. That we'll make those arguments as well. But it is the direction they seem inclined to go. But I will tell you that there are people that I talk to in Salem every day that ask me, what have we done? Why did we create all this? The HEC now has 140 employees in it. The OUS had like 70, when I left. And so it's growing. I mean, the HEC includes the Office of Degree Authorization, the State Scholarship Commission, or whatever it's currently called. And so it's maybe not fair to make that comparison, but people are asking that question. And so we'll see. If it gets to the point that this fails, I believe the legislature is somewhat inclined to step in and just make appropriations directly to universities. I'm not sure that's a good thing in all cases, because, those with power would probably do better in that than those without. But I think there are alternatives to this big kind of new structure we've created. And, we'll see, how this all plays out. But it's the dawning of a new kind of era, both in terms of individual boards of trustees, in terms of, who's distributing the funding, how it's being distributed, et cetera. And, the RAM model lasted from 99 to, say, 15, so that's, say, a 16-year period of time. Before the RAM model, the BAS model, I believe, was created in 83 and ran or 81 and ran until 99. So these models have a certain shelf life, and, the world changes and so on. No model is perfect, and any budgetary distribution is inherently political. And it will be played out in the halls of the legislature. That's why I need to be there.
Another observation, and it may not be one that we particularly like hearing, certainly not one that I like hearing. Whether we like it or not, the power base is west of the Cascades. The politicians look to the institutions on the west side of the Cascades relative to where the population density is. And that's not an area where we're particularly strong. The second piece to that, that's just what it is. Something that Jake has been articulating and that we have been starting to operationalize as we start to strategically plan our moves forward, is that public higher education in Oregon has largely been privatized. That is our new normal. Okay, we're not going backwards. We're not going to get any more money from the state. So in this new normal, we are in a very interesting competitive mode with people who used to be our partners, whether it's Treasure Valley Community College or Blue Mountain Community College. I 14 days don't pass where I'm not hearing from my counterparts about how we're recruiting in their backyards for students. And indeed, there's no nice way to polish that. We are. And it is a dogfight out there for those first and second year students. The transfer students, it's a different discussion, but as it's relating to those first and second year students, there's no argument to be had. We're going after many of the same students who historically would have gone to TVCC and Blue Mountain with a different level of aggressiveness and presence that we haven't had in the past. And that's ruffling some feathers, and so politics as we know it relative to the east side is evolving, is changing, but I think the ways in which we've been accustomed to over the course of the last decade and 2 decades is also not our path forward. And so in this path forward, we have to be thinking rather differently. And it is very challenging, and I recognize that. And how we move forward collectively as a community is ultimately going to be, I think, our greatest challenge.
And I just had, there's a new battlefield forming, and that's high schools.
Yeah.
You know, the legislature is likely to pass a bill requiring every high school graduate to have earned something like 9 or 12 pre-college credits. And there are increased opportunities, I think, for us in the high schools. And you know, I mentioned in my notes to you about David Douglas coming out at our invitation. And, you know, the largest high school in Oregon, they're getting shined on by PSU. They're frustrated, and they want to work with somebody. They've got a very diverse student body. They have lots of arts programs, things that would really be a nice funnel coming to EOU, and they're the state's largest high school.
Other questions for the president? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy your ride. Next order of business is the provost update. Sarah?
I provided you with a written document,
Mm-hmm.
and do you have any questions for me?
Question?
30 seconds. I might add to one of my notes, note number 7, and I'm reminded of it because Kevin Walker is sitting here, that Western Oregon University has ceded their fire services program to Eastern Oregon University, so such that it now is our niche to be the statewide provider for fire services administration.
It's actually region-wide, sir. Western Oregon University was FEMA Region 10's designated provider of those courses. So it's not just Oregon, it's all of Region 10.
Which
okay,
includes?
so, and that encompasses which states?
That's Alaska, Washington, Idaho, Montana,
Okay.
Oregon. There's like 6, 7, 8 states in Region 10.
Okay, very good. And as a consequence of that, we now have at least one niche in the state, and looking at some FEMA funding for a fire services center in this district that can serve multiple states. And I think that that will certainly help us make a name for ourselves out here in a certain sector.
Thank you.
Appreciate your good work, Kevin.
Thanks.
And he's currently drawing up a number of articulation agreements with community colleges in Oregon, not least of which is Chemeketa with 30,000 students. That would be a good pipeline for us.
That was mailed yesterday.
Senators, questions for the provost? Sarah, I have one.
Sure.
I read with interest your number one item. We need 100 level classes appropriate for freshmen we serve, and deans, and the deans will be discussing this need in context of scheduling for fall 2015. Thank you. I know that came up in the CAS discussion with the president, how many of the cuts in the sustainability plan hit the courses that were designed to support the underprepared and struggling students that come here. And I really think that's warranted, and I'm glad to see that in your report.
Yes, Donald Wolf will be, is he here? Donald Wolf will be putting together Sounding 2 in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and it's going to be devoted to retention. We'll probably have a Sounding 3 that gets back to the Center for Girls Studies initiatives, inviting external partners to the campus for conversation with our faculty. But more about retention, it was, in the past couple of weeks, we've had several meetings around the retention issue, which is hovering around 56%, not good. And we have identified 62, 63 students who from fall to winter term were put on probation. So we've been digging into the data for why it is that these students are not being successful, and we are at great risk of losing those 62 by spring term 2 strikes and you're out, and not retaining them for fall. So the committee did a calling campaign to those 62 students, either to discern why they didn't enroll winter term, or to provide some caring adult conversation about how are you doing now, and is there anything we can do to support your success during winter term so that they're retained for spring and then hopefully for fall. And Kathleen Brown was able to dig into the data and discover, what sorts of issues these students were having. Some of them were late enrolling students, so it's that at-risk population that enrolls very late in the summer. 30% didn't succeed in their math courses. There's like 89% correlation with students who never attended a Mountaineer event. So there must be something going on there. So that's moving forward apace. Donald had the discipline chair sit down with the advising council earlier this week, to identify, and dig in a little bit deeper on this 100 level courses that are appropriate for first year students, and having more conversations around that. And from that particular meeting, he'll be springboarding to a retention sounding where the faculty will be introduced to the data points around retention and around some of the issues that this retention committee has discovered about where the gaps are in our programming for our first year students. So that will be coming along by the end of February. So I would encourage you to stay tuned and try and attend that event once it's rolled out.
Is one of the items on the radar of this group the issue of placement relative to courses that students actually take?
Not so much on that radar, though it's pertinent that you bring that up. Smarter Balanced is implementing a new system from the Common Core state standards for entrance into a university, and students who place at 3 or 4 in the Smarter Balanced test don't have to take the SAT or the ACT. And Lisa Mintz at the state level has asked provosts to sign off on letters for that, for those students that we would not administer AccuPlacer. We've had a conversation with our math faculty and writing faculty, and we aren't in favor of rolling the dice that much on our first year students, that we would like to continue to use AccuPlacer as a placement tool for students in math and writing.
But one issue that used to be a big problem and then went away largely because of better advising, but I've heard some anecdotal evidence is starting to be a problem again this year, are students placing into a certain math and writing, but choosing on their own to take a course beyond what they actually placed into.
I don't know, Donald. I wish Donald were here to respond to that. I think that we're taking a hard look at that, and I've asked Donald to work with the math faculty and look again at the ALEKS, ALEKS, which we had looked at back in 2007 when we had similar retention issues. That the literature is suggesting that modular, self-paced math programming for pre-college actually is showing positive retention numbers at universities. So, there are a number of fronts that we can act on with regard to math and writing placements, and we're going to have to talk about it at this retention sound, because it does have something to do with advising. It also has something to do with the kind of testing and our need to make sure the students are accurately placed, and that they're not able to, I don't know if it involves the registrar putting a hold on these students that are in these particular classes, that they can't just self-assign themselves to a higher level, where they're not going to be successful, and then we end up taking the hit on the retention.
And what I've heard from my colleagues that have taught and designed to do courses and the courses that are meant to help the underprepared students, is that the sustainability plan cut some of the very courses that would have helped students that came underprepared be successful. And it seems like we have to, as we went backwards in the computer science cut, that we need to be careful, and it seems to me that we need to go back to providing those courses, because otherwise we're going to hurt ourselves in our retention, which seems very important. So I hope that we're looking at doing that. And I know that could be the action of the president. It wouldn't take till fall for him to get that started.
Well, we are, this very day at XCOM, we did talk about the English writing FTE that was factored using the Delaware study divider of 45 for 45 credits. So we're thinking we cut a little too deeply in the writing FTE in the English writing program. So that this very day is being addressed, and a decision point should be reached in the next couple of days.
Good. Other questions for the program?
Just maybe one other thought, and it pertains to retention, but also the last couple of cycles in recruitment where we ended up with a first-year class that was smaller than usual. And then when you factor in retention into the sophomore year, we now have a junior and a sophomore class that are going to be smaller than usual. And if you can make lemonade out of that, we need to. What we're hoping is that with a flat enrollment, with an increased first-year class coming in, which we're all very focused on, like a laser beam on, that some of the resources that we might have needed for sophomore level programming in certain key areas might be, because if we have additional capacity at that level, we might be able to lay in more first year programming. And I see Javier has his hand raised.
I recognize Javier.
Another piece of this, I apologize, my voice is not right. The challenge that we have before us is, I would also say, very, very unique. And you're touching on it, Sarah, but I think you're also, with respect, being a little bit ginger on it. And let me get back to the following question. Right now, because of what this poor community has gone through the last 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, we have been stuck in what I can only define as this knee-jerk reaction, which has been largely reactive. So we have now a new board of trustees, a new environment that we're operating in, where change is actually possible. It's no longer just, maybe, do we want to think about it, but I would submit to all of us that actually change is possible as we start to beg the question, where are we going? Where should we be? And how do we make ourselves indispensable with a region that is changing demographically, changing in terms of population, and with an environment that is fundamentally different relative to state support? That's a different kind of question, and I guess I would ask all of us, how do we nurture and value and support the issues that this community has gone through over the course of the last 12 to 24 months, and similarly recognize this unique opportunity that you get only once, I would argue, with the transition to autonomous board of governance, that begs the question, where do we want to go? How do we want to get there? And what should we look like relative to our curriculum, which resonates with the future of where Eastern Oregon as a region and the demographics and the larger population base is speaking to. We're not alone in this conversation. It's happening in Wisconsin. It's happening in Connecticut. We look around at those states that have large regional college, a large number of regional colleges. They're all asking the same question, and they're moving at different paces. If you listened a little bit to NPR this morning, you heard of the radical test that Wisconsin may be facing relative to their changing landscape in public higher education. It's not going to hit the Madisons of the world. It is going to hit the regionals in Wisconsin very, very hard. So I guess I simply want to say we have an opportunity here to not just mend and heal, but also chart a course forward that is neither easy nor simple, but it is a unique moment in our institutional history. And it's a moment maybe that we can galvanize around if we take the opportunity. And it won't be easy, and I acknowledge that, but it is an opportunity that is presenting itself as we move into this new era.
Any further questions for Sarah? Thank you. The next thing on the agenda is an old business item. Has to do with the theater classes that were tabled. And this is going nowhere unless I have a successful motion to untable this item.
Move to do that.
Okay, thank you, Steve. I'm not hearing a second.
Second.
All in favor of untabling this item, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it's untabled. What do we got?
Shall I speak?
Yeah, Michael.
Well, after some help and some research and some communication with Rebecca Hartman on this, since it's her class, it's being referenced as being the same as the theater's proposed class, I revised the syllabus, and that was posted. Revised the outcomes on the syllabus, and a separate sheet was posted along comparing the proposed theater course with the History 319 course, and that. And so that was done. The other question that was brought up was competition for students for this type of course. And I formally polled my students in my classes if they had a choice, if they had to take a course in their major upper division or an elective upper division course in another discipline. They all went, 90+% would say they would take their required upper division course. And then I also asked Farouk to run some numbers, and the majority of students that take the History 319 course are history major and minors. So essentially, the history course is elective for the history majors, and the theater course is an elective upper division for the theater majors. So there's really not a large overlap or competition based off the numbers. Another point I want to make as part of our proposal that was passed is that this course is 3 credits of the 15 needed for upper division for an online theater minor option. And if this course doesn't go through, then there's not enough upper division credits for that option for out-of-distance students. And just this year, I've gotten like 3 students about Oregon want to finish their theater minor that can't come to campus. And this option would help those students as well. Another aspect, the theater program has strongly believed for years that we should include some some film studies in our curriculum, in our programmatic offerings. And because our students want it and we believe they need to be exposed to it, right now we have 5 alumni in Southern California working in film, though in the initial struggling of independent filmmaking and that. But we do have students making a go of it. This term, we have all the actors that are in the communication, film concentration, capstone, creating their films, all the actors, the majority of them are theater students. So that's why we include this one, to give our theater students, context, and and that's why it came about. And there we are. Any questions?
Responses? Regina?
I just would like to add some information in the record in terms of comparable kinds of offerings in other disciplines. We have in the catalog SOC 306, which is social psychology. In psychology, we have Psych 360, which is principles of social psychology.
Those aren't remotely the same courses.
We have Sociology 345, Media, Politics, and Propaganda, and in Politics under the Paul's 340 number, Jeff Politics and Media. I think that a look in the catalog descriptions would demonstrate that all of those do have different catalog descriptions that would demonstrate that those are in fact different courses. And I think that the same is true of the two courses under discussion.
Other comments, other discussion? Hearing no further discussion, I would like to vote on this item.
There needs to be a motion.
Yeah, you're right. I was realizing that. Is there a motion to move forward and accept these items of 475?
No motion.
Or is motion? Is there a second? Sarah? Further discussion? All in favor of approving Corey's motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Abstain? Motion carried. Thank you.
So we have approval?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, under Senate new business, we have EPC consent agenda. Deanne, I understood that you wanted to pull some from the consent agenda.
Well, yeah, I'm a bit, the consent agenda is supposed to be things like program title changes, DPD, that sort of stuff. And we've got a whole bunch of program changes in all of this stuff, which I...
Please.
The amount of items that was included on your agenda was so large that to separate them out into to consent agenda and action items would have made it, I think, more confusing. So we put all of the related information, or related action items together, and let you decide what you want to pull out as an action item.
You want to pull I know I want to pull the administrative curricular action. The EMSA as a new program should at least have some discussion. I do have a question about BA 323. I do want, anywhere in here? Because it does look like the changes to the chemistry biochem program will really be problematic for anybody who wants to work in chemistry. But I assume there's not much we can do about that one. And I guess I just wanted that in minutes. It just seems like a really poor degree at this point.
So Deanna, I'm trying to keep track of what you're saying here.
So I'm making a motion to pull the administrative curricular action item, the EMSA new program item, the BA 323 item.
Hang on. Yes.
Making work, Isaac, T. Should I do the
So I have those three.
Biochem, like Hume 103. The Hume 103. And then that's the end of it. And I'd like those to be considered individually. So that's my motion.
The last time we did this, we disposed of the remaining items on the consent agenda. I'd like to do that now.
Well, I need mine to be seconded and approved. right? Made a motion.
Do we? I think we could just pull them off the
Or can we? Just
Yeah,
vote?
I don't think
Okay.
we need a motion to pull these,
Awesome.
the senator can pull these for discussion. All right. So do I have a motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Second, Warwick. Further discussion on the consent agenda? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, let's take these one at a time. Deanna, do you have one that you want to do first?
Why is it always me? I think, well,
Your items.
so it would be nice, so we have Kevin here to share with us the EMSA new program.
And Sally's requested that we talk about team first because
Oh, okay.
Danny needs to leave.
Okay, HUME 103. So I make a motion to approve HUME 103?
Second.
Okay, discussion?
And then can you share a little bit about the
I know it was coming out before. And that the one thing that kind of tweaked, or was interesting to me, is it's been offered for 3 years as a X10, and that
2 years.
2 years. So I thought that seemed kind of odd, but because we usually convert them after 3 offerings.
Well, the reason it's being brought forward is we want to make it a permanent class and get away from the X10 number. Just briefly and really quickly, our Eastern Promise program has 2 overarching goals. One goal is to provide accelerated learning opportunities for high school students, and the second is to build a college-going culture in our region. And so this class really provides a bridge between both of those. We have a program that we begin in 5th grade called Academic Momentum. Students in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade receive a curriculum that prepares them to start thinking about and making decisions about their future, going to college, post-secondary education or training. In 9th grade, we have a freshman transition course that we use, the Career Choices curriculum. It's a national curriculum. It's been used successfully from New Jersey to California and points in between. We chose that because it has some dynamic data. High school graduation rates increase and going on to culture rates increase. And it fits very well with the structure of the schools. We now have 22 high schools who are using this. And the other side of that model is that that's a college credit course that serves as the initial kickoff for those students to start thinking about and dedicating time toward in their course selection and in other activities, preparing for a post-secondary education and training life and a career later on. The hallmark of this curriculum is a 10-year plan. Unlike most programs that just look at high school, this is looking at from 14, 15 years old till 24, 25 years old, and making decisions now about what they're going to do. Does that mean they're going to stay locked into that 14-year-old decision? Probably not, but they have a vehicle for making the decisions to change that.
And the people who teach it are the high school
teachers.
And are they the ones with the master's degree then, so that it can
Correct.
transfer?
They have a master's degree, and in order to teach this class, it's different from some others. They have to go through an extensive training program, generally a 2 to 3 day training program in order to be familiar with the curriculum. And as with all of our other programs, they formed a professional learning community, and so we meet 3 to 4 times a year and bring everybody together to talk about what they're doing, what needs to be improved, what's not working, and making changes along those lines.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me? Okay, we have a motion on the table to approve HUME 103. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the EMSA new program so that Kevin as well can come and go.
Second.
Kevin, would you like to join us up here?
Why, sure.
Thanks.
like everybody here that doesn't know
You're easy to know.
me. I'm easy to know.
So, do we have a second for your motion?
Steve.
Thank you. Okay. Could you tell us about the
Yeah. There's been a, because everybody knows that I run the Fire Service Administration Program. The counterpart of that is an EMS administration program. And there are very few bachelor's level programs that aren't run by for-profits. And there are none that follow the national standard curriculum, really anywhere west of Illinois, I think. So it's like a pretty big swath of country that people aren't really following the standards. And ever since I've been the FSA, in charge of the FSA program, my counterparts at the community colleges in Oregon have harassed me nonstop about the prospects of a bachelor's degree for EMS. Oregon is kind of unique among states in the U.S. where we actually require, as a condition of licensure for a paramedic in the state of Oregon, we actually require you to have at least an associate's degree. That is not true for most states. Most states kind of follow the National Highway Safety Standards, whatever the minimum course hours. You meet the hours, they hand you a little card, and you go out and, presumably do good. We actually have a higher standard, as the fire chiefs like to say, for better or worse, we require a higher standard here. In this particular case, we require a minimum associate's degree. Now, some have masters, and there are some that even have masters, but the vast majority, they get the degree, get the paramedic licensure, and then they're kind of stuck because most of these don't. The closest degree would be like a structural fire degree, but that's about structural fire mostly. I mean, some of the things are sort of relevant, but it's not a good fit. And so the directors of these programs regularly ask about having a bachelor's degree. This past fall, when President Kenton asked for proposals, I submitted that as something that people were requesting, and that was, go forth, create the proposal, and bring it to the faculty, and that's what we've created here. There are 9 programs in the state of Oregon that would be feeder programs for this degree, as well as the approximately 7,000 licensed medics in the state of Oregon that have, that actually don't have a degree but would like to go on and get one. And there's also, our neighboring states, kind of the same thing. They don't have this either, but they're also interested. It's structured very much like the FSA degree, and many of the same people. A lot of my FSA faculty are also licensed paramedics, and they would, the whole structure, they're very, very similar. Same, primarily taught by adjuncts, and until we're get to the point where we can finances permit us to hire somebody full time to help teach some of the classes. I mean, frankly, I'm sort of tapped out. So
I was wondering how we could offer another degree with just you.
Yes, it's primarily it's my adjunct faculty and all the folks that run the community college programs. All of them in this state have master's degrees, and everybody's volunteered to work as adjuncts to teach one of the needed classes if necessary to get us up and running. So we can make that happen with minimal outlay. So going forward, I really hope to be at the point where we can have somebody that can take some of the load and be able to teach both. We'll basically be able to carry a full load in both the EMS and fire classes that are related. So that's pretty much the general outlines. Do you have any questions?
I think you addressed mine with the adjunct faculty. She recommends that.
Any further questions? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to get a vote on the motion to approve this. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. Thank you, sir.
You want, did you say you pulled BA?
I'll move that one too.
Because
I move to accept BA 323.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion in a second. Kevin, would you like to give us some information on this one?
Can I actually, Kevin, just give, so it sounds, psychology has the stat 327. We have, the stat sequence for mathematics. We also have Poly 251 that is a social science version of stats. And in conversation with Steve, like just right here before the table, he said he had talked to y'all that the idea is maybe the intrastats part would be taught earlier. This would be a subsequent thing, but it's not clear from the paperwork.
Yeah.
So that's just what I wanted to clarify.
And see, we did have this conversation, Steve and I, and Amy Yielding, and Les Mueller. And what my intent is, and we actually have to clarify something within the department, because I think even there's some confusion there about the sequence. In most, I say most just because there could be somebody out there that doesn't follow this model. But virtually all accredited business programs have a requirement of an elementary statistics for the standard basic, so they can know if you say mean, median, things like that. Theoretically, you don't get a blank look when you mention it. But then, above that, then you actually have an applications course where you teach them how to apply that basic knowledge into the business decision-making models where we actually apply this stuff. And that's a completely different animal. And so that's basically, it's a hole we have. And as Mike can attest, you get up to the strategy classes, and they don't know how to use any of the application stuff. It forces our faculty to basically cut time out of their 10-week course to try to teach basic applications so they can go forward with the actual strategy class. That's not only a waste of our time, I think that's probably going to be raised the next time that we're up for accreditation, because we actually don't have this in place and sort of not justifiable. And that it's basically meant to fix a hole in our curriculum. The others will think that we had it at one time. But I mentioned to Elwin went back to, I think, 1990s, is that right? And couldn't find it on the books. So if it was there sometime between now and at least back there, somehow it got pulled off the books. So, because our first thought was we would just resurrect it if it's still there. But something's happened to it, so basically we're starting from scratch to basically build this applications course, get it back on the books, back into our lower division core, and simply actually be able to use it for something. So that's what's going on.
My question is, so I'm not sure whether I understood you correctly. Is this the students in the business department will take 243 then and then take BA 323? Is that how?
Right. That's the usual sequence in a business program. They take elementary stats, and then the applications class builds on top of that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Kevin? Any concerns from the math department?
No, we've had a meeting on this.
Okay, fine. Okay, hearing no more discussion, all in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. Kevin, do you have anything else for us?
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And we have administrative curricular action left. We have administrative curriculum action left.
It is left.
Yes. Do we have a motion to approve it?
Is that regarding
List of course deletions.
Course deletions, list of courses, certificate in web, author, program deletion, EC memo on administrative curricular action. What do we have here?
Well, there needs a motion. And
We need a
approve
motion.
before we can have any
Okay, good.
discussion.
No, I hear no motion to approve this. This is, Dan, I'm going to ask for your help here. This is failing because we don't have a motion. Is that like tabling?
It's not like tabling, no.
What is this item about?
Yes,
And why
please.
is it being tabled or?
It hasn't been tabled.
Why was it pulled?
I'm pulling it because it's, I don't see it as a consent agenda item.
Sally, can you help us out with this?
Well, there's a lot of difficulties with.
This is administrative action to delete courses, 3 courses in journalism, 3 media arts courses, and about 15 multimedia courses in response to the sustainability plan, and also includes a deletion of the certificate in web authoring. We have a list of the courses attached to the curricular action.
And why is this list under administrative curricular action instead of under
Because it
the...
is an administrative action to delete. All of it is administrative action to delete. This is similar to
Well, I
the-
think it's worth discussing, what is the authority of this body to hold something like this hostage? Or is it an administrative action that doesn't require, it's an information item? It doesn't require a vote of this body. I mean, I think you have to figure out how you're going to deal with it.
Well, I think when we created the elimination policy in UPC and improved the policy, that the Senate saw that they still had the authority to either accept or not accept an administratively moved forward item. So that in the policy for EPCC, for the administrative withdrawal parts, that's why it's supposed to come forward from EPCC with a rationale as to why it should be accepted.
Like I say, just say per the plan.
Yes, I'm not sure that's the rationale, in my opinion.
Nicole, I couldn't
Down
hear.
this road before?
Yes.
It feels like.
I didn't hear what you said, Nicole.
I don't know. No.
I mean,
But you sign off as provost. So if it seems like, just to speak frankly and get through this, we could vote this down, which means we don't like it, we think it's misguided, whatever. Say our piece, put it in the record, and you can sign it. There you go. So I move we vote it down. If that's a motion.
I'm not sure that's a motion, honey. You have to move to approve, and then we
Don't
can vote
move,
it
we don't vote for it.
That's not a motion that you.
So, Senators, I think the correct process would be to have a motion to approve, get that second, and have a discussion and vote it down. If that's your, do I have a motion to approve this?
Somebody else can.
I make a motion to approve this.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Thank you, Deanne.
So this is, to me, again, the same thing that happened at the end of the last year. We have a major. The major that was approved by the state had 3 concentrations. This measure is to remove those 3 concentrations from that program that was approved by the state. If you remove those concentrations, you don't have that program anymore. The concentrations are on there.
No, the concentrations were already removed in previous.
No, film is not removed. Film was tabled. It's not gone. That one I know from last year.
Concentration and communication,
Yeah. And that's part of this problem too, because it's like, if you remove the stuff and then you have a degree that was approved by the state that no longer has the coursework that was approved by the state,
So you're seeing
a
this as
mess.
an end run to.
I don't know if it's an end run. I'm just thinking it's a real problem to have an approved program and remove all the concentrations. I like Steve's analogy that we were discussing earlier. It's like, if theater decided to add engineering as an option to their program, which, maybe makes sort of sense because you engineer lighting and stuff. And so you had a theater program that you had theater and engineering, which was okay. That's a program change. And then you decided as a theater engineering program to no longer offer theater. Now you're an engineering program, but you've never actually been approved to be an engineering program. You are a new program at that point.
So are you suggesting, Deanna, that we move to delete the entire program?
Well, that would make more sense than to delete the program that was, because you don't have anything left from the program that you deleted from the state. Or, for the state-approved program. That's my only concern. I think, if Communications wants to come forward as a new program, that's an awesome idea and should do so. But it's a new program, and it seems like that somebody somewhere in accreditation or at the state level or HEC or something would say, wait a minute, how are you doing this? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you're raising a valid point. And I would say that to a certain extent your argument is putting the cart before the horse because in fact the new program paperwork hasn't come through yet. But your point is well taken.
So it seems kind of weird to delete the concentrations and leave a program in limbo, especially if something doesn't come down the pipe later. It seems like what should happen first would be the establishment of a new program that could then support the coursework that exists and then delete. That's what I'm sort of saying here.
So you would be open to, when that program comes through, that they at the same time file the deletion of program paperwork?
So if a new program comes through and gets approved by the state, then it should be that program deletion. Do you see what I'm saying? Because just because we have a new program come through, which I think it would come through if we had a new, if we want to say Communications as a program, as a new program, it's going to the state. I think it would be approved at the state level because the state's going to see where we need to have this done as well and approved this year while we still have a board that can do it fairly hopefully quickly, because who knows what HEC's going to do in terms of program, new program approvals sort of thing. But then once you have that established, then you can remove an old one. But at this point, I feel like you'd be leaving an entire degree in limbo because it wouldn't have any state-approved concentration. It wouldn't have a state-approved degree. And then you would have students in it who don't have that program. That's what I'm thinking.
So still, you would be open to when the new communication program comes through, that they can at that time file the deletion paperwork for the old program?
If the new program is approved.
Well, I don't think you can put a contingency.
Well, I think, what I should say, not it. What I'd say is the program should come through and be approved, and then the program, the existing program
That's fine.
paperwork
Like
would
tearing
delete.
down a house,
Yeah.
we built a new house to live in.
Kind of like living in California.
And then tear down.
Then tear down the old one, just to make sure nothing weird happens and we're homeless.
Although it could be said that if that new program is going to occupy the space of the old program, that you would need to raise the old program first in order to build on.
But the beauty of metaphor is that
So hyperspace metaphor.
Hyperextended.
Yeah. So that's why I'm uncomfortable with deleting
Okay.
courses
Further discussion?
on that.
Could I make a quick comment?
Sure.
Just regarding the courses in particular, the MM courses, maybe they look familiar to some of you because they came through last year. They came through last year as course changes to MA courses in response to the 2013 sustainability plan. So I just wanted to point that out, that these courses have already been sort of run through in a different context, the shared governance process. They were, according to the 2013 sustainability plan, one of the points in that was to change MM courses to MA courses in order to consolidate the MAC program. And so the Senate has already voted on those transitions, or those changes, but they weren't approved at the provost level last year. So these courses that are coming through again are coming through in a different context. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, thank you. And I see you, Regine. It seems that we've got to a place where we're thinking that this is the cart before the horse. In fact, the provost seems to have acceded to that. So I think we're moving forward with this. Regina, do you have something further that will help us with this?
To draw everyone's attention to these courses under the MM listings are in the catalog under CS and Computer Science and Multimedia. They are the remaining courses that are still there after Computer Science brought forward their curricular changes and converted courses that they wanted to retain in the Computer Science major. They converted those now to CS, which will go for the approval. The MM courses that are here on the administrative action passes are the remaining courses in those pages.
So was it misrepresented then, what this particular action item was about at this table? Because I was responding to something that apparently it's not about.
I felt I needed to clarify that.
Well, and so it seems that everything we've talked about is like irrelevant.
No, because the paperwork is to delete minor program. So delete journalism, multimedia, media arts, and certificate in web program and web authoring.
I can clarify again. Those courses, the MM courses that I just spoke of, in response to the 2013 sustainability plan, there were concentrations out of MAC that were also deleted. But again, they were not approved. They were approved by the Senate, but they were not approved at the provost level. So all of those course out. So that's what you're seeing is the remnants. If you go in and look at everything that's approved, there's a Google document for last year. Those are some of the few items that were not approved at the administrative level. Journalism was one because recall Dr. Gustafson retired, so the journalism concentration was cut. This was all in an effort to consolidate the MAC program. And I put those through. I put those changes.
The actual form is to delete the courses. It is not to delete the concentration. It is to delete the courses in journalism, multimedia, and media arts, and the certificate in web authoring. So it's not the concentration, it's just the courses. If That's what the actual action is doing.
Thank you, Sally. So the information that we have from the head of EPCC is that this action is to delete those courses. Is that correct? And that's in line with what, Regina, what you've told us, right? Senator, does that make sense to you?
Then why are the program minor concentrations being deleted part in the paperwork?
No, that's just saying, I think the paperwork, maybe the actual box there is not, so that's, it's program minor concentrations, which is titled whole.
Okay.
And those are the programs that these courses are.
So if they delete the courses, then are the minors or the concentrations in MAC still existing?
The concentrations that they were in, I'm assuming those were gone already. And
I know film isn't.
Web-based and media arts and communication courses that largely exist under COM prefixes. There are a few under MA prefixes as well. Those make up the COM concentration. Courses that are being taught out this year are the ones on the list.
Thank you, Regina. So you're saying that the courses on this are courses that are being taught out this year and will not be taught again, and that's the reason for their deletion?
Although it would seem that they should be deleted next year, given that they're being taught out.
So, Provost, does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the paperwork no doubt bears the implementation date as fall of 2015, if not summer of 2015.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Further information? I'm hearing no further discussion. We have a motion on the table to approve the deletion of these courses, as the EPCC chair explained to us. All in favor of the deletions, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion doesn't carry.
There you go.
Senators, I believe we've disposed with the items that were pulled from the consent agenda. And I'd like to go to the discussion items next, which is my discussion item. Do I have Evans here? I will join us, please. And I sent you a report that I wrote along with 3 other faculty members concerning a protocol that we use for collecting student evaluations. And I hope you've had a chance to read it. What we did was we set up a protocol where and we did it for online and on-campus classes. In the on-campus classes, our protocol was to give the students an opportunity within the class period to fill out the online student evaluation. And this was meant to be parallel to the way we used to do it when we or somebody would show up in class and pass out the pencil and paper evaluations and fill them out. What we were seeking to do with the on-campus classes is to mimic that, to give students a chance not to fill it out paper and pencil, but to go online to fill them out, get it done, and then come back. Our rationale was that the reason we had good response rates when we handed them a piece of paper was that they were likely to fill it out. So parallel to that, we figured if we gave them opportunity to go to a computer screen and fill out their evaluations, they would. And as you saw in the study, that happened. One of the issues that clouded our research was that we got information just prior to implementing this on-campus portion, was that the portal for student evaluations was not smartphone friendly. And that caused 3 of the 4 of us not to follow that protocol, but instead make the evaluation a regular assignment in the class, and we encouraged the students to complete the assignment. Rayette, who was part of our study, didn't get that message, I think, and went ahead and had her students fill out the application, and she reported no problems at all with the online portal. And I don't know whether any of the students use smartphones. I know they use tablets and laptops that they had.
Correct.
Okay. So there didn't seem to be an issue for that. I know that if you have a large class and not all the students have laptops or tablets handy, that it may be difficult to get them to a computer center. Did your students go to the computer lab to fill this out?
No, we have 6 computers in the classroom, and students have their own devices that they bring to class.
And how many students did you have in the class?
18.
So that was that. The rest of us had a mixture of online and on-campus classes. I did that for my on-campus classes, and I believe everybody else with on-campus classes made it an assignment. We encouraged the students to fill this out. 2 of us offered a small amount of extra credit to fill out the evaluation form. The other 2 offered no credit for filling it out. And as you probably saw when you read through our report, is that there was no apparent difference between offering points and not offering points. And because offering the points brings up a whole bunch of other issues about whether people are being favored, whether they're being bribed into making it out, our recommendation is not to offer points. In the online evaluations, in our online classes, we made the evaluation a regular Canvas assignment that the students had to do. And the students, given encouragement and the language of our discussion about why it was valuable to make out the evaluations is in the report, and you can read that. We used that to encourage students to go and do the assignment on Canvas. And what our assignments were, because we couldn't embed the assignment in Canvas. The assignment was to go to the link that took them to the student evaluation portal in Webster and to fill it out. And we couldn't take them directly to that. They went to the Webster screen, and then they had to sign on and go through the same process they did before. And most of our students did that. We had hybrid and strictly asynchronous online courses, and we did that, and we got quite good results. And I'll draw some of those results to your attention. If online you're looking at our report, you go to, I believe it is page 3, and you'll find table 2. And there are the 4 of us professors are listed there. There's on-campus, there's synchronous, hybrid classes, and a little bit of information on graduate and undergraduate. I couldn't tease all that information out. And what you'll see is that for the different professors, our response rate was between 87 and 39%, with an average response rate of 59%, which is a magnitude higher than the response rate of the general community, the student. So what we recommend to you is that we need some sort of process like this to encourage our students to respond, to fill out the student evaluations. This protocol was meant to be mirrored like it was to mirror what we did with the paper and pencil applications as much as we could with a virtual program. our belief was that if we encourage the students to make out the evaluations, put it before them, either in the on-campus context or in the Canvas context. And it's my belief that students, when they go take a Canvas course, the way they find out what they're supposed to do next is they look at the next assignment or module on Canvas, and it seemed to happen that we put this before the students, encouraged them to fill it out, and they did. And we find this very encouraging. And we'd like to answer your questions on this. The participants were Rhea and Stephen and Gary and myself. And we'd be glad to answer your questions about, it was very simple to do. The process went very smoothly, probably more simpler to do than the paper and pencil was. And we were very encouraged and heartened by our responses. Questions? Comments?
Well, I don't think you can require them to do it.
And we didn't.
Right, but you can have them go to a link and all. But the whole, I guess I'm leery about using the word assignment because it makes it sort of sound like you have to do it. It's an assignment that you have to do.
And the only reason I'm using the assignment is that's the name of the structure that's on
terminology in Canvas. Yeah.
Michael?
I have an idea here, an IT solution to this. I believe Canvas, Blackboard have polls. Are they anonymous polls? No?
I don't
think so.
If Canvas is like Blackboard, polls in Blackboard were anonymous.
Okay.
And I suspect that that's the case in Canvas. I think the way you're going, Mike, is I have thought about this too, converting the course evaluation to a Google poll, which is anonymous and can be embedded into Blackboard and gathers all the same information in almost a more effective way than the archaic and quite clunky evaluation that we have now.
And then the IT people can gather that data, pull it into.
I mean, somebody else could make the form. Angie Atkins could make the form, or someone. I don't want to give them that task. That form would be owned by someone other than the faculty member.
And it would just be a link or something under discussions.
We could get the embed code and plug it right into Canvas.
And how would that appear in Canvas?
It would appear just like a Google form.
Would it be a link on the side, or would it be under discussions?
It would be the actual valuation.
So would the CRN populate automatically if it's inside that course?
I don't think so.
Could you program it so it did? Could one program it?
I don't know. I don't have that capability, but perhaps somebody in IT would be able to answer that question.
That's pretty
I think,
sophisticated
it is a bit of a bit clunky for students to have to go out of the course shell, log into log into Webster, and then they got to go all through these menus. There's a much finer way to do this using Google Forms, and I think it could be an effective alternative. I mean, that's another test to try.
And I think that what we're looking for here, what I'm looking for, is some consistent solution that can be adopted by all the faculty.
Yes.
And I think that that's a large part of the reason why Alan Evans is involved in this is FPC really has a huge stake in solving this problem, which is endemic across the faculty, that we're depending in tenure promotion reviews on data that is probably not valid because the N is so small.
It's not valid.
No problem.
No valid. No problem.
I can actually probably attest to the Google Doc. I do a personal Google Doc, an informal, tell me what you think, and it is anonymous. And I can look back, but because I was only part of the study this last term, I got better feedback on Canvas than I would have with my Google Doc.
Yeah, it's something I noticed. I did extra credit for mine. It wasn't a lot of points. It was less than maybe 1% of the total points for the class. And the students on campus responded more actively than that to that extra credit than the students online. And I think that's a demographic difference that we have. So, same class, same structure for the assignment, and same number of extra credit points. But the on-campus students, 80%, 90% of them went, it's like, here's your bag for you, come and get it. And I got 90% response, I think, in one of my online classes.
If I may, on the online classes,
Yes.
I saw the verbiage that you presented. So how did you present this in the online class? Was it an email? Was it just a blurb with an assignment? As I recall, there was something in there about go to this form and say that you participated in it, that you completed it. It's an honor system, and you will get extra credit. So exactly how did you communicate that to students?
Well, I don't know whether we all did it exactly the same way. We used all the same verbiage. I put up a course evaluation assignment that had the verbiage that was there, and via email, I let the students know that assignment was there, and that I wanted them to go to it and fill it out.
Okay.
Mine was embedded into a module.
I think I might have created an assignment. I sent email and I put in an announcement.
Okay.
They got multiple.
Yeah.
Some students respond to emails, some respond to announcements.
And I think somebody suggested that a lot of it was just having something there as an assignment that they could see because it's routine.
Yes, it was there. Presenting them, it was the analog presenting them a paper to fill out in class. We presented them an assignment and asked them to fill it out. It was a good thing to do, and they responded.
With or without credit in various cases.
The credit didn't make any difference.
Okay.
Nicole.
I'll be brief. I'm just going to throw this out there. We spend a lot of time trying to work out how to best develop this customer satisfaction survey that has a terrible response rate and has for some years. I would just submit that it would be progressive of the Senate to consider ditching these things. All the literature that's come out in the last year, including an excellent study by statisticians at Berkeley, shows that these things are deeply problematic. So if we're not really using them in promotion and tenure evaluations, which we really can't because the N numbers are so low, then what are we doing? Linda Jarofsky's piloting a program in CAS to do sort of peer observations. It would not take a huge amount of effort and creativity to come up with a portfolio system, a peer observation system, whatever, that we use for promotion and tenure, and stop pretending that some freshmen from Ontario can effectively assess the quality of teaching in their first online course or whatever. I just think that they're not primed to evaluate good teaching. And I think their preparedness to do that is going down over time. And that sounds horrible and elitist, I know it. But I think it's true. Why go after them unless there's an accreditation push? And then I think there's still ways of doing it. But have the CTLA come up with surveys we can give our students for personal feedback, just like we all do anyway, right?
Yeah.
So you can download questions into a form, they can make it really simple, maybe have 5 forms to pick from depending on what you teach, but it's all for your own edification as a professor. They don't go into some file, and we don't go like throwing candy at them to get a response. Or, I don't know, I just don't read them in the same way that I did 15 years ago. And I don't think they ask questions that are meaningful anyway.
Yeah.
So I would suggest we just stop doing them and come up, it wouldn't take long, I'll do it, with a series of possible surveys that we can pull from the CTLA website. And if you want to include them in your portfolio because they're good, go for it. If you want 5 peer evaluations of your teaching, that's great. The dean should come in, the associate dean, people from other colleges. But I would say, let's stop fighting this fight.
Thank you. And that's a rather bigger issue than what we were trying to do here. What we were trying to do here is to present a protocol that it doesn't at all usurp or block anything that we would do on your suggestion. And I think that's a real warranted suggestion we should consider. What we proposed here is a protocol that can get us the response rates that would make our instrument valid. Whether the instrument is the one we're going to use, we don't really have a comment on that. And Faculty Personnel Committee might have more to say about that. Right now, what we have is a simple protocol that can get us to the 60 to 80% response rate very quickly, and it's very easy to apply, as my colleagues would attest. It essentially meant putting up a one-paragraph request, giving it to the students, or giving the students 15 minutes in class to fill it out as we have before. So that's the extent of our proposal. We're not addressing the very important comments that Nicole has, just how could we substantially improve the response rate based on what we have now. I think the FPC and this body needs to talk further about how we're going to improve our evaluation and bring it up to what we really want it to be. Yes, Sarah?
Would it be possible to request of the FPC chair that they entertain Nicole's idea in addition to the hyperlinks here for bringing up response rates, and bring to Faculty Senate in March a proposal that can be adopted that, either we go to one end of the spectrum and ditch it, but offer some solution for having a data point that can be triangulated with other data points. And it could be a survey or a slate of surveys that a faculty member can choose from. Or it could be, all we care about is bringing up the response rate. Here's our proposal for doing so. And the Faculty Senate agrees to adopt it. The faculty agree to adopt it. My point being that we need a proposal to act on. I know FCC is going to be very busy in the next little while. So this might be something that needs to be dealt with after April 24th. But I would hope that by June that this body is able to act on something so that we're not swinging in the wind here on a satisfaction survey.
Well, Sarah, I submit we don't have to do one or the other. I think we should do both. We can simply adopt this protocol as a Band-Aid to get our response rate to where we want. And at the same time, we can go forward with a proposal that might make this Band-Aid unnecessary. But right now, we have an FPC guideline and criteria for evaluating faculty personnel that looks at student evaluation. I think it's that we can continue, and I did when I applied for tenure, said that this was an invalid measure, and I didn't use it, but I did use the comments because it was helpful. In any case, I think we could do both. I know that COBE is planning to go forward using this protocol because it doesn't change the evaluation, but it really increases our response rate to where we get some valid measure there. So, what would be useful for this body to do, I think, is to decide to use this protocol, even if it's an interim issue, to get our response rates from the 5% up to the 50 or 60%. And I'm pretty convinced, based on what we've done, that we would get to there. It would be fitting that the faculty would agree to do that and administration would support it too. Then we would be acting together for the benefit of this particular problem. So goes our report. Is any senator interested in making a motion at this time?
Don't we discuss one meeting about the next one?
Yeah, we could do that.
I thought that was the law.
I don't know whether it's the law or not. And it could be the tradition. Sally?
So, ask a question. I'm not interested too. And I would be interested in what Nicole, because everything, even Nicole's suggestion has been discussed with PC already. But if you could have that more specifically written down to better explain the rest of PC, because I'm not sure I understand exactly what you were saying, but
I would be happy to prepare for Senate and for FPC.
ship
my
something
position
to Alan.
clearly articulated.
And I think that generally speaking, and we've been at this for how many years? Generally speaking, I think that the will of the faculty is to get away from a satisfaction survey and get closer to a learning survey. What did you learn? That would be way more helpful than did you like the room you were in?
Yeah, I personally, I would like to see better questions. So, I mean, I agree with the getting a response from the students, but don't we need a survey that really does something more than, as you said, it was a nice room. I've been in other schools where it was, we got a syllabus at the beginning of the term. I mean, is that really the kind of question that we want to ask? Or are we looking for more pointed responses that really get to the crux of things?
Okay, so that's information. Not seeing further discussion, I think we've finished our discussion of this. I'm going to move on. You're still here. Come on, man. You're the next one on the list.
So I think does the faculty, Senate, have a desire for further conversation?
Thank you. One of the things that I said at the second meeting, that when we got to 5 o'clock, if we weren't done with the business, that I would entertain a motion to continue our discussion. And if we have that motion and it is passed, then we will continue on. Without that motion, we will adjourn at this time. Do I have a motion to continue the meeting? I am hearing none. Is there anything for the... Thank you, Javier. Is there anything for the good of the order?
Just one item. First Friday Forum will be this Friday. I'll be buying beer, and Rory hasn't responded that I've seen yet today. But Rory is going to be talking a little bit about CHART, and Randy Jones is going to be talking about Cottonwood Canyon Summer Institute. So those are going to be 15-minute informational spots, and I would encourage you to come to the First Friday Forum in the alumni room this Friday, 3:15. Yeah, you want to get...
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order?
Just real quick, the last item there is something that AOF put forward for outcome-based funding, so you might want to read it.
All right. Thank you, Senators. We're adjourned.
Javier, chicken, that's what it's like.
What?
And that is what it's like.
I'm going to run. Wow.
And
What you wish.
Fast and Furious is my head at the moment.
Yes, it'll roll over.
I'm And I only got lost what happened. Good.
Abstentions are a good thing when he calls it right.
Yeah.
Taking reaction.
Anytime.
I abstain. That's kind of my new law.
I see.
Well, we had very good